帰りください。しつこくするとこちらにも考えがあります。
考えがある。名誉毀損で訴えますか。
ロン毛。
いや、そんなこと秘書のあなたはしない。こんな事件でボルツマン先生の名前が出てはまずいでしょう。
脅迫しているつもりかね。
とんでもない。本当のことを知りたいだけですよ。
Always about the truth, eh? ロン毛。
あの会社はただの売春婦じゃない。何人もの政財界の人間の名が彼女の線
あ
あ。それがあのフロッピーには暗号が羅列してあってなかなか。
私がやる。フロッピーをよこせ。
I'll do it myself.
しかし警部は他の事件でもお忙しいんでしょう。
構わん、私によこせ。
Workaholic,
前からお聞きしたかったんですが、いつ眠ってらっしゃるんですか。
それが事件とどう関係ある。不合理な質問だな。
Doesn't even come into play for ロン毛。
あの話いつするの？
いつ話しても同じよ。あの人、私たちの話なんか聞いちゃいない。
His family? Oh, focus on ロン毛. I like it. He's got this really pasty skin tone, doesn't he? Really pale.
お前まだ例の売春婦殺し、ボルツマン議員の線を洗ってるそうだな。
何か問題ありますか？
あるよ。終わりだ。内務省の偉いさんからも圧力が。
Ministry. Okay then.
今回のケースは私なんかじゃフォロー。
How convenient for a lot of them, right?
とかお願いします。
お前はこれまでずっと見事なキャリアを築いてきた。今さらこう焦ることもないだろう。それとも何か？
No, it's not about success.
とかいうつもりか？
こう焦る。正義。どちらも興味ありませんね。女が一人殺されているんです。私はその犯人にしか興味はありません。顧客リストの暗号を解読した。これで全ての名前を変換できる。
それでまたいらしてるんですが。
Is it?
エヴァ・ハイネマンという。
It is. She drunk?
一体いつになったらテンマは逮捕されるの？
随分とまた飲んでらっしゃるようですね。
飲まずにいられますか？
ドクター天馬の件は一応私の中では解決しています。すべてヨハンという男の仕業と彼は言っているが、ヨハンというのは彼の中のもう一人の人格なんですよ。一見不合理に思えたあの事件も、こう考えるとすべて合理的に片付く。会って話を聞いてみたいことはたくさんありますよ。ドクター天馬、興味深い人物ですからね。
Yeah. Okay, ロン毛。
シェルフォーンという出版社、ご存知ですか？たまに有名人の暴露本を出しちゃなんとか食いつないでいるような出版社なんですがね。その会社のやり方がまた汚いんです。いかがわしい女を雇って有名人と関係を結ばせ、手記を書かせるって言うんですから、くれぐれも注意した方がいいですな。
No hello or anything. Who is this? Striking eyebrows.
一瞬たりとも休もうとしない。まさに超人的だよ。
No. There's some. Oh.
本当に人間じゃないのかもよ。
There's probably something.
これ何だと思います？あの娼婦のメモです。ある男との密会の様子が事細かに書かれている。シェルフォン出版はあの女と彼女のライフストーリーを出す契約を交わしていました。
And she was eliminated.
ああ、そうそう。
Wow.
あなたヤンカという男に連絡取ったことありますか？その男プロの殺し屋なんですけどね。
帰りたまえ。とっとと帰りたまえ。
Is it his family or is it
私たち家を出ますから。
his wife and daughter, perhaps?
お父さん、私が妊娠していたなんて知らないでしょ。
あなた、私に恋人がいたなんて全然知らなかったでしょ。
There it is. He is human after all.
ボルツマンの秘書のミンタークです。
ミンター。
すべてお話しします。いらしてください。
ああ、そうですか。そりゃどう。
And once again,
出かけてくる。詳しい話は後で聞こ
う。Don't think there's going to be a later, my guy. Wow.
あの秘書が自殺しました。
Oh, again, that beautiful sound design.
ボルツマン先生は無実だ。これがあの秘書が残した書き置きだ。あとライケネ公園の件と ガーラント社長殺害の件もな。
では私は何を？
君にはもう何もないんだよ。
Interesting. Wow, look at this. I mean, as one door closes, another might open, right? That's all he is.
私にはもうお前しか残っていないようだな。
また例のエヴァ・ハイネマンという女性が。
お通ししろ。
奥さんの元になんか返したくない。二度と来られないかもよ。私の香水たっぷりつけたカバンに入れといたから。いつも違う男を連れ込んでるのが気になる？
いえ。
あなたもあやかりたいって思ってるんでしょ？綺麗になったわね。私この庭が好きなの。こうして庭をぼーっと眺めてると嫌なことも忘れそう。
This is the man who made
言
it.
っていただいてよかった。
案外あなたみたいな人ならできるのかもね。私のこと幸せにする自信ある？
ねえ聞いてるの？お父さん。お父さん。
He's got something interesting on his mind.
私の話なんか全然聞いてないんだから。そんなことだからお母さん他の男の人のとこに行っちゃうのよ。あ、ごめん。
Come on now.
いや、
A bit of respect.
いいんだ。
He's timid, but
実はな、これったお父さんにもしその好きな人が。いや、なんでもない。
this guy.
どう？今晩食事でも。
いや、
Oh no.
何緊張してるのよ。
こういう高級な場所は苦手で。
私にふさわしい男になりたかったらどんなところでも堂々となさい。庭で仕事している時のようにね。
That's his element, though.
庭にいる時は本当に自分に自信が持てるんです。庭が好きな人に悪い人
Look
はい
at
ません。
this.
あなたもあの庭が好きだとおっしゃってた。
私もいい人だっていうの？
はい、もちろん。いや、あなた寂しそうだ。
There's a deep sadness.
あなたもね。
Yeah. Spot on.
あなたも寂しいんでしょ？
Is she... Okay. It happened.
ケンゾ。
She's still not over him. I don't think she'll be ever over him, but...
もうすぐクリスマスだな。これ
Oh, look at this.
もしかすると二人っきりじゃないかもしれない。
Careful, my guy. Careful, careful. Might get your feelings hurt.
その男が私の人生を狂わせたのよ。
すみません。
She's drinking again.
名前は健三天馬。私の元フィアンセ。
またこんな時間から飲んで。
私の父親を殺して逃げたのよ。あいつは濡れ衣とか言ってるけどふざけんじゃないわ。大病院の院長の娘として将来を約束されてたのに、3度の結婚の失敗だってあいつのせいよ。
You don't truly
何が
feel
ヨハ
that
ン
he
の仕
did
業
it.
よ。父と一緒に写ってるのがヨハンよ。こんな子供が父を殺せると思う？
天馬がそう言ってるんですか？
くだらない言い逃れよ。
この写真
There's a photo of him.
警察に提出したんですか？
するわけないでしょ。
重要な証拠になるかもしれないじゃないですか。
やったのは天馬よ。ルンゲ警部の言う通り、天馬は二重人格なのよ。
なぜあなたは彼の写真をこうして飾っているんですか？あなたは心の底では天馬を犯
She's
人
gonna
じゃな
snap.
いと。
She's gonna snap.
そしてまだ天馬のことを。
メロドラマの見過ぎじゃないの？
No. He's spot
こ
on.
の男はね、最も私にふさわしい男だったのよ。それに何よりこの男は私に逆らわなかった。私のわがままをすべて聞いてくれたわ。イエスイエスイエス、すべてにイエスという男だったわ。この男が私を世界一幸せにしてくれるはずだったのよ。
Great voice acting.
私では彼の代わりはできませんか？一生あなたのために庭を作ってもいい。あなたの心が安らぐなら。
That look. That look.
一度抱いたぐらいでいい気になるんじゃないわよ。あんたなんかただの退屈しのぎに決まって
I
る
don't
でしょ。
know. For a split moment, there's that look.
何その気になったのよ。
あなたは本当に寂しい人だ。クリスマスの日、家で娘とパーティーをやります。よかったら来てください。
Still. And now maybe she'll turn into.
お母さんが帰ってくるんだ。そうなんだ。ね、そうなんでしょ。
コレッタ。
お母さん帰ってきた。
Did she actually turn up? Oh. Oh, she's coming. So pretty.
シャルロッテ。
あなたごめんね。ごめんね。
Oh God. This reaction should be interesting then. It's almost as if she had this glimmer of hope. Wow. Wow.
何がイモザよ。何がバラよ。何が美しい庭よ。
Wow.
何が元大病院の院長邸よ。すべて燃えてしまえばいいわ。
Hold on, is this actually happening or? I think she actually. She did burn it down.
やっと真面目に私の話を聞く気になったようね、ルンゲ警部。
たまたま手が空いたもので。
私にはこの男しかいないの。この男の息の根を止めなければ、私は幸せになれないの。
Oh, is this a team up? Okay, look at that. Look at that. How about that for a team up, for a duo? You know, at the end of the day, both of them seem to have lost everything, right? Yeah, you know, they kind of go down a bit of a unique path, each one of them, but they kind of arrive at the same place, don't they? I mean, you see that Lunge, yeah, he's got all the freedom at this point, right? And there's only one thing left now, only one person left now for him. Essentially, you know, those shots of him just sitting there inside of his office, hands in his pocket, just sitting there. There's something so jarring about that, right? This is his life. And, you know, he's been taken off all of these cases. Of course, you know, a lot of things lead up to that, and I'll get into it, but that's it. That's all he is. I don't know. I just didn't think he could end up in this type of situation, right? Kind of shunned, put aside, taken off duty. I mean, technically, he is employed. But yeah, they're not really touching him anymore. I mean, there's essentially a bit too much baggage there, right? Given how he looks at things, or how he chooses to not look at things, or how he chooses to not care about certain things like politics. He does not care one bit about office politics. He does not care one bit about, you know, certain high-level individuals being untouchable or should not be touched. He doesn't care for any of that, right? I mean, in that sense, there's a bit of a parallel to our Dr. Tenma as well from earlier in the series, right? Of course, for different reasons, but, you know, Tenma also didn't really partake in the office politics, right? Because ultimately, he wasn't even really in on it anyways. Like, he wasn't even able to kind of perceive it. But yeah, you know, both of them don't really partake in politics. Yeah, both of them are essentially geniuses as well, right? So you see that the interest that Lunge takes in Dr. Tenma is beyond just, you know, him thinking, oh, he needs to bring this man down. He actually finds him really quite fascinating. He does. And yeah, you know, like I said earlier, he's got all the time now. He's got the freedom now. And it brings him back to Dr. Tenma. Because, you know, earlier, yeah, it was pretty clear that he kind of moved on, right? He felt that he cracked it. He felt that his hypothesis was spot on, right? And that there's no other possibilities, right? A bit of a character flaw, I think, even. So, you know, ultimately, maybe he's not the greatest detective ever, right? There's a few things that kind of hold him back, I think. I mean, he's got the skill set, no doubt about it. But there's some personal things that kind of come into it that might be kind of putting a bit of a limiter on him, right? Might be kind of acting as a speed bump, I think. He kind of hypothesized that ultimately it's this split personality thing that Dr. Tenma has going on, and that Johan is actually this other personality, right? So there's even this interesting possibility or, a belief that maybe, maybe the Dr. Tenma he knows, or the one everyone else knows, is one personality, and the personality that is able to kind of tap into that dark side and able to perform these gruesome murders is this other personality, Johan, right? But speaking of Johan, there was a photo of him back at the mansion. Of course, the mansion has gone up in flames at this point. But yeah, I just found it so fascinating that there is a photo of him out there, and Johan doesn't even know about it. I mean, it doesn't matter anymore. It's gone up in flames. It's gone. But the fact that she had a photo of Johan, right? And of course, our gardener. Did I get a name for him? I don't think I got a name for him, did I? I mean, he implores Eva to maybe give that to the authorities, right? It could be helpful, perhaps. So it's interesting that she just kind of kept it to herself this whole time. Never brought it up to Lunge, right? Now, in terms of Lunge potentially knowing about Johan, he knows about Johan, right? He knew about the Lieberts all that time ago, right? And that they did have these adopted children, one of them being Johan, the other one being Anna. I believe he knows all about this, right? And surely he knew about the missing children from the hospital all that time ago, before the time skip, right? So am I right in assuming that he does know, okay, this is the Johan Dr. Tenma is kind of speaking of, or trying to, present as the prime suspect for this, but he ultimately decides that it's actually a split personality of Dr. Tenma? Again, please correct me if I'm wrong on that, and if he actually doesn't even know about Johan, the kid that is Johan. But to me, it feels like, that'd be quite the oversight if he didn't know about Johan's existence altogether. But she had a photo, she kept it. And speaking of photos, she did keep Dr. Tenma's photo. Couldn't let that one burn down, could she? She had to keep it. And of course, beyond that aspect of it, having a photo of him is going to be necessary on their own search that kind of begins at this point, I suppose. So, you've got Dr. Tenma out there doing his thing, going after Johan. Now you've got Lunge and Eva on his tail. I did not expect it to go down this path or play out in this manner, right? Eva and Lunge teaming up. I mean, it hasn't happened just yet, but it appears to be going down that path, right? That, they're both kind of open to it now. I mean, it's interesting that she's openly saying things like, if I don't kill him, I can never be happy, right? She's saying this openly in that office space. So it's interesting, first of all. But it's also interesting given the fact that, they established earlier that, he doesn't care for justice and all that, does he? Right? And he himself also has quite a bit of interest in Dr. Tenma. So I don't think he really truly cares about the things Eva has to say at this point, or her motive behind this at this point. I mean, there's really quite a striking moment that really caught me off guard, right? As she burns down the mansion. She literally did it. I mean, I legitimately thought that it's more so this visual indicator of her headspace, her state of mind at that moment, right? Scorched earth, full of vengeance, full of hatred and anger at that moment, for so many different reasons. That was my initial take. And then as the scene kind of keeps playing on, and she's narrating it, it became clear, oh, hold on, she actually burns it all down. I mean, it's one of the most striking moments of the anime so far. I mean, some of the imagery in this episode is really quite striking, isn't it? I noticed crosses really quite prominently featured throughout this episode. Even in that burning scene, you see a bunch of them in the background, right? And these crosses can show up in the design of the buildings, in the makeup of the interiors of someone's house. You see it once again in the framing, in the door frame behind the little girl, as she is looking in on this perfect family, right? And then, of course, that stunning shot of the cross on her face. That's got to be my thumbnail. Surely that's got to be my thumbnail. Yeah, a lot of crosses, right? So, of course, that notion of redemption, maybe the Christian redemption at that. But speaking of Ava, she's just so messy. So messy, isn't she? She's deeply flawed, and painfully human. And that is always a bit of a perfect mix, isn't it, for an engaging and fascinating character, a complex character, no doubt about it. Right? I mean, at this point, I think it's safe to say that she's got to be one of my favorites of this story. Right? She's a fascinating character. I think it's really quite fascinating to see her navigate this life of hers. And then you bring in a possible narcissistic personality disorder, right? Alongside being spoiled and neurotic. A dash of alcoholism as his coping mechanism, right? Because she simply does not know how to deal with her feelings. So there's always that self-pity, that self-loathing, self-hatred. She's forever unsatisfied, forever unloved. My goodness, this is, it's a fascinating character. She really is. And, I've got to say, the voice acting is perhaps the standout of the show so far. Easily one of the best performances out of the cast I've experienced so far. And it continues every single time I see her. Now it's at a point that I'm getting excited to see her anytime she is in an episode. I don't know. It's just really engaging to see her storyline play out and her character arc play out, right? And now it's taken a really unpredictable turn for me, at least. I just didn't think they'd be teaming up in this manner, or both of them could land themselves in situations that lead to this path. I mean, Ava, you can kind of understand how she reaches this point, but yeah, I just did not expect Lunge to get to this point as well. I mean, she's really struggling with her feelings for Tenma. How she truly feels about Tenma, right? Of course, deep down inside, she knows Tenma didn't do it. She knows Tenma's innocent, but Tenma just happens to be this integral figure to everything in her life, right? She blames Tenma for everything that's happening. I mean, she even blames these failed marriages on Tenma. Everything that's happened to her, she's kind of putting it on Tenma. That Tenma put this into motion, that because of Tenma's choices, now I'm at this point. But of course, at the end of the day, she cares for him. She's not over Tenma. And the thing is, the gardener knows this. And of course, us, the audience, knows this as well, right? But the gardener picks up on this. The gardener is just such a kind soul, isn't he? Timid, just a nice person, empathetic, right? Because he himself is also lonely. He himself has also struggled with relationships, clearly, even though his wife, who left him for another man, came back to him, right? I mean, she seemed really quite apologetic. And yeah, from the looks of it, he's accepted the apology. He's accepted her back into his life, right? In their life, right? And you see the daughter's really quite happy about all of it, to have her parents back together. And even the daughter herself is really quite a fiery, limited appearance character, right? Quite the personality on her. I mean, to me, it did feel like deep down inside, she is trying to improve her situation, right? I think the gardener saw that as well, that she is trying to better her situation. So, sure, us audience can see it too, but the gardener, despite all the things, all the mean-spirited things she had to say to him, essentially telling him that, she just used him for a night, right? That's all it is. Don't be delusional, know your place. Right? Who do you think you are? These types of things, these types of really mean-spirited jabs. Yet, his reaction is one of empathy, isn't it? He understands that this is a lonely person. And despite all of that, he still invites her over to his house, to his home, on a really special occasion, on a special night, to share a meal with his family, or, at that point, his daughter, right? And yeah, the moment he leaves, you see that she immediately drops that act, that facade, and then that look on her face is present once again. It's the same look she had on her face a little bit earlier in that conversation, right? As the gardener asked a question, could I take his place? Right? And I think at that moment, she did see a glimmer of hope. She did. And I think that does kind of explain the look on her face. It's a unique look that us audience is not used to seeing on her face. And those moments are really important, I think, because usually you'll get the really sharp features, striking features, really mean looking features, and then he himself also kind of lays out his heart, doesn't it? I'll build gardens for you for my entire life, right? If it could set your heart at ease. He was open to it. This man was open to it, because I do believe he saw the goodness deep down inside. He did, right? He even said something like, oh, you like gardens, or, someone who likes gardens cannot be a bad person. Someone who appreciates the beauty of gardens, right? And, of course, gardens and her name being Eva, and that is essentially the same thing as Eve, right? But in German, of course, it's by design. Her kind of almost longing for the paradise that is kind of represented by the garden, right? She wants to be redeemed. She wants to find paradise again. Though, of course, she ends up making that choice by the end of it, right? To burn it all down. But sticking to that glimmer of hope that she sees here in this possibility, in this man who just handles all of this in such a graceful manner, right? You have to give him a lot of credit. Listen, ultimately, he's much better off without Eva in his life. He really is. But yeah, you see that something changes. There's a shift in her demeanor. And I'm speaking of Eva at this point. There's a bit of a bait and switch, isn't there? They make it seem like, oh, the daughter's really happy to see the mother, but he knows, oh, okay, no one's about to show up. Like, he's not expecting Eva to show up either, but there is a knock at the door. So he's expecting Eva to show up. And then he's also thinking about, oh, okay, how's my daughter going to react to this? Because she's expecting her mother, right? But then indeed, it turns out it is the wife and the daughter's mother that shows up. But, going back to Eva, you just see that she is exuding a different type of energy, isn't she? Right? She goes out to grab a gift. And I don't know, she just kind of looked gentle. She looked soft, kind, right? She had this really lovely smile on her face, right? She goes up to the door. She hears the laughter of a child. And you see that really affected her as well, right? Gets another really lovely smile out of her. I mean, the whole situation felt like this potential redeeming moment, right? That for the first time in a long time, she is making that step, that crucial step, towards kind of getting over Tenma, getting over this notion of him being responsible for everything that's happened to her, even though, of course, she knows deep down inside it's not the case. But she made that step. She made that effort. And yeah, to me, that smile on her face, it just felt like a legitimate smile, that she is happy about this, right? Because she goes into this thinking, okay, yeah, let's do this. Let me go down this path. Let me try this out. There could be something there. But of course, turns out the universe is not going to allow it. She shows up, and before she can enter, his actual partner, his wife, came back into his life, right? But there's another thing there. I think beyond her just kind of being a little bit heartbroken at that moment, a little bit sad to see that, and of course, certainly jealousy as well. I think there is this notion of, okay, she doesn't know anything about this man and his situation with his wife, right? They didn't speak of that, unless they did off screen. I don't know, they did sleep together. But yeah, I think there is another angle to this. She might be thinking, oh, look, another man who is in a relationship, who sold me all these things, these lies, promised these things to me, but he has a wife at home, right? So he's just cheating essentially, right? And I think it's by design that they do set that up earlier in the episode as well, right? They show her and just some random guy. Of course, some really established random guy. You see that she's engaging in that type of hookup culture. She is engaging in that type of behavior at that point. She knows he doesn't truly want her in that manner, right? In a more definitive and long-term capacity, right? He's using her. It's a booty call, right? It is. And she understands, but you see that she's also all about kind of indirectly letting his wife know that, okay, he's being unfaithful, right? Maybe you could even argue that she is trying to break up a marriage as well. And of course, I'm speaking of her leaving that handkerchief with her perfume on it, right? Inside of his jacket, I believe, or inside of his bag or his suitcase, I think. But yeah, she is vindictive, that's for sure. But yeah, as she looks in and sees that happy family, takes a moment to kind of take it in. It's this situation that she could not even dream of at this moment in her life. I mean, given this gardener's attitude and his nature, I think he might have mentioned that, yeah, at the moment he's single or, he's separated. Surely he must have mentioned that off screen, right? That night, perhaps. So I don't know, it's just speculation in terms of her potentially thinking, oh, look, another man who's just cheating and using me, right? That's just kind of like a possibility, right? Based on, it hinges on him not having told her about his own personal situation at all. But yeah, you see that out of spite, she does burn down the garden as well. But let's shift the focus to the other part of this duo, Lunge, as I get the most comprehensive focus on Lunge at this point in the series, right? His personal life as well, or the non-existent personal life. Oh my God, the looks on his family's faces, his daughter, his wife, dejected, disconnected, disinterested, forgotten, right? It's almost as if he passed his emotionless demeanor onto them, right? That they've become these empty husks in that house, almost as if there's just no joy in that house at all. And, ultimately, yeah, they end up leaving, both of them, right? A lot of these other characters or, other people that are, fellow employees or assistants, they say things like, oh, he's superhuman. The man doesn't need to sleep, right? The man can crack anything. Really is quite a genius level detective in those people's eyes, right? But there's a cost. There's always a cost to being that engaged, that overindulgent, that dialed into your work, right? And, this is a ongoing theme at this point. I think just in the last episode, they used Dr. Schumann in that manner, right? Being so dialed in, having that tunnel vision that you forget family, you forget the important things as well. But going back to Lunge, he's meant to be this genius level detective, yet he simply could not see how things are at home. And he could not see the situation. He could not read the situation that's right under his nose. And the thing is, even once it is directly in his face, at his doorstep, he still chooses to prioritize work, right? As he does kind of get a call during that conversation, during that really important moment in the life of his family, right? I've got to be honest, I'm really quite surprised. I honestly kind of just assumed really early on in the series, that he's not the type of person who has a family. I just assumed he doesn't have a family. But look at this, he's got a full-on family, right? His daughter is pregnant and he did not even notice one bit. Listen, at one point, I wasn't even sure if this is his family. The first time I see them at the dinner table, I did think, oh, okay, this might be his family. And then, yeah, it transitions to him. And of course, even at home, that late at night, he's doing work stuff, no time for family dinner. And the thing is, him being home at that point is apparently something a little bit out of character even. It's a little bit surprising. The daughter thought it was kind of surprising. At that point, it was kind of clear it's his family, but then I was kind of doubting it a little bit later. I'm like, hold on, he's going up the stairs. He's not even saying hi to his daughter. So at that point, I'm like, hold on, is this his family? Is this his daughter? Or are these just people that live, I don't know, people that are renting space in his house or rooms in his house? I don't know. So, at that point, I was kind of questioning it. But yeah, it's clear that it is his family, and his family's kind of had enough of this, right? He didn't notice that his own wife is having an affair. But, much like how Dr. Schumann learned that other people are not tools or NPCs, right? They're human beings like ourselves. And, you must learn to appreciate them. You must learn to give them time and care about the things that matter most. That is something that both Eva and Lunge lack, don't they? A thing that both Eva and Lunge have in common is their lack of understanding of the reciprocity of human relationships, right? You see earlier that she's describing Tenma as this yes man. Yes, yes, yes. I mean, that was one of the standout moments of the episode. The voice acting in the animation. You know, I was about to call it acting, essentially. Great moment. My goodness, you know, like I said, the character of Ava and the voice acting is one of the standouts for sure. But, you know, her calling Tenma this yes man, essentially, right? That he never refuses or never refused her selfishness. I mean, both of them have self-destructive tendencies, Lunge and Ava. They do. I mean, you know, this matchup, this duo is quite a fascinating one, isn't it? You know, on one side, you've got a person that is consumed and driven by her emotions, right? Painfully human, embarrassingly so even. And then, of course, the other, Lunge, is the complete opposite of that, isn't he? The man is all about rational thought. I mean, again, to the point of it being a detriment. But I think Ava specifically is particularly self-destructive in how her narcissistic urge to assert herself comes before maintaining any legitimate, genuine personal connection that might help her kind of rise out of her really sorry state. And his superior did say something interesting, didn't he? That he is being pressured by the Ministry of Interior. So, you know, that's not something new, is it? They've been kind of establishing that for a few episodes at this point. You know, higher ups, this grand conspiracy, and who's in control, who's the real monster, who are the real monsters, you know, who is the puppet master, and all of that stuff. But I thought it was really important that this episode sets up that, you know, eagerness for success or justice is not really how he looks at things. I'm speaking of Lunge at this point, right? It mainly comes down to him satisfying his curiosity, right? And his hypothesis, right? Confirming the truth that he believes he has kind of cracked. And there's one more thing about Lunge and his case I did want to touch up on before I sign off on this episode. The suicide that happened. Now, please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. It's not a suicide, is it? Because the assistant to that politician that Lunge is kind of going after kind of came clean, right? He gives him a call. He's like, I'm open to talking. You know, please meet me. Please come over. But of course, before he can actually get to talk to him, the assistant has died. Apparently suicide, right? And there's a note and everything. And that note, of course, absolves this politician as well, right? How convenient. So essentially, they got to him. They got to the assistant before Lunge could kind of get to speak to him, right? But you know, I think a notable thing of that scene is the close-up of Lunge. I don't know, there's emotion on that face. He's emoting. You see, he doesn't do much of that with his family, but you'll see reactions out of him during work, right? He'll react to certain things in specific manners, for sure. But, you know, that specific moment, yeah, you see that he's really quite surprised by this moment. Shocked in how it kind of played out. That ultimately maybe, you know, him going after this case and him kind of pestering and questioning and coming after the assistant as well kind of led to his death. Yeah, I'm not sure how it's going to play out. You know, these two together in how that's even going to function, right? If they are actually just going to hit the road and try to track him down. I mean, it sounds like it for sure, but yeah, I'm excited. But if you enjoyed that, consider dropping a like, consider dropping some comments, give me your thoughts. If you are interested in timer-based full length and full opacity, or perhaps even early access to the next few episodes right now, consider checking out the Patreon page. The links are in the description and the pinned comment if you do want to support the channel. Also links to social media, things like Twitter and Instagram, if that's your thing. Right then, thank you so much for joining me, folks, and thank you for your time, because time is precious. It really is, and I do hope to see you again soon for episode 15. Until then, take it easy.